What's happening inside the Harris campaign right now?
What is happening in real time is that they are on the phones. You better believe that.
Who are they calling?
They're calling donors. They're absolutely calling party insiders, and they're calling delegates.
And the ask is to give money and give us your vote?
The ask is for support, right? If you're talking to a donor, obviously money is important, but it's really their support. I mean, where we are now, in large part, was a full court press, I would say, by party insiders and donors as to how we got here, right? And so obviously she's making phone calls to them. And some of them, you know, in terms of the donor community, these are somewhat new relationships that she's got to be able to foster in a very short time. And so she's going to lean on her friends, right? She's going to lean on Biden. She's going to lean on the Clintons. She's going to lean on Obama to help her really bring those people to her and to support her.
Do you expect any other Democrats to put their name in for the nomination, or does Kamala Harris have this locked up?
Listen, one thing that I am not going to do is to try to predict anything, but what I will say to you is that Harris is in the strongest position possible. I would be very surprised. I mean, I can't think of anyone who could even come close to the strength of Harris right now, having been this close to the incumbent, right? Being this close to the now president. And so she's able to point to wins, and she's able to distance herself from the things that perhaps the administration hasn't done so well.
Well, let's talk about some of those things. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind that Republicans attack her on is the border. She was appointed border czar early on, and the numbers are going down right now, but it's still been a problem for this state and for all border states.
And you know, exactly, and that's something that, you know, in this country we've dealt with, right, for decades. And so the fact that as the vice president, she actually took on that problem, what that tells me is that she's not afraid to really tackle the tough issues in this country. And that's very honorable, because these are issues that we know we have dealt with forever in this country.
You're very connected, Jane. What are people texting you about? What are they asking? What are they saying?
You know, it's very interesting. Donors seem to not necessarily be aligned inside of their own circles. But what I'm hearing from key Democratic leaders and delegates, you know, our super delegates, is that they're going to be behind Harris.
But the donors aren't necessarily aligned?
I would say no. And you know, my message to them would be, get on board. We're going to be with Harris. Kamala Harris is going to be our presidential nominee. So
but she can't run without money, though.
She can't run without money, and so that's what a lot of key insiders and party affiliates and party insiders and grassroots people like myself, who have really been in the trenches for 20-something years. Our message to donors is, look. We are getting behind Kamala Harris, and I'm using donors in a very general term, right? But in terms of where there may be misalignment, I would say it is in the donor community. But our message is clear. We are behind Kamala Harris to be our presidential nominee, and we're moving forward.
What's it going to take to get donors on board, do you think, to get them, in a general sense, all behind her?
I think, we have to remember that, insiders weren't really with Kamala Harris as the VP choice, right? I'm sure you remember that during those campaign days. And I would say a lot of it is that these are relationships that Kamala Harris is going to have to cultivate for herself. So she's going to have to call on her allies to help get her in the room, get her on the phone. And I'm very confident that once the donor community really gets to know her better, they'll see that it's a clear choice. I mean, if you think about Trump as a criminal, which factually he is a criminal, he's now up against a prosecutor, a former AG, a former district attorney. This is his worst nightmare. I can't think of anyone else that is better suited to stand on that debate stage and take him to task. So I am feeling like the Democrats are in a very strong position.
You think so?
Absolutely. And all we need to do now is line up. And that is something that's a little hard for Democrats to do, as we know. I mean, we are as diverse as this country, right? We do represent the diversity of America. So it's not as easy for us to get in line. But I will say this, the sooner we get in line with Harris, the better off for the party and the better off for this country.
Let me go back to something I asked you a moment ago, and that is, early on, in the first few hours after this happened, I was surprised at talking to 3 different Democrats who are officials and former officials, that they didn't immediately fall behind Harris. And they said, listen, this could be open. You might have a number of people who are looking at this. Do you think that's going to happen at all? Or are people talking to their families right now wondering if they should get into the race?
Look, I would have to say some of those dear people are my good friends that I've known for years. And my message is the same to them. We need to get in line. We cannot pass up Kamala Harris. And if we did, that would not only be a problem for the Democratic Party we know today, it will be a problem for this country. So just as honorable as Joe Biden, our president, made the decision to step aside, right, and endorse Kamala Harris, it's now the time for our party to follow suit.
You talked about the opportunity that Harris would have as a former prosecutor, former DA, former Attorney General for California. What are Harris's challenges, though, in the coming weeks?
It's really, just getting the party to align, and that's no small task, right? She recently said she can absolutely do it. She recently said that she's going to earn the nomination. And I have no doubt that she's going to do that. I mean, she was questioned when running for DA. She was always questioned when running for Attorney General. She's been questioned in her role as the Vice President. And I do believe that Kamala Harris is very comfortable in this position. She's never been handed anything. She's had to work very hard. She's had to always have an answer for the naysayers. And every single time she rises to the task in front of her, and we're going to see that again.
Republicans obviously very litigious. What type of legal challenges do you think the Democrats might face?
Well, we're always facing legal challenges, but
for this, if Kamala is the nominee, and transparency's got to be huge, is what everyone's telling me. Do you think that there are going to be legal hurdles here to jump?
I really don't. I think that the party rules are as clear as they possibly can be. There are people in the back, talking about scenarios of, can Biden hand his delegates, he's got something like 3,800 or so, can he hand them and release them directly to Kamala Harris? In that scenario, maybe you'll see people sort of challenging that. I don't get indication like that's the way it's going to happen. So
how's it going to happen?
Well, it's an open. It'll be some sort of a primary, right?
On the phone ahead of time, do you think, or is that going to happen at the convention?
Well, I think that Harris and the Biden campaign, obviously we're seeing them as a unit right now. Okay. And what's important to remember is this, is that President Biden is not just saying, I'm fully endorsing Kamala Harris. He's on the phone. He is making calls. They are working as a team. She is inheriting his machine and adding to it with the people that she has in support of her candidacy and her as a VP, as well as her presidency. So to me, if I'm looking at the Democratic Party, that's extremely strong. You've got the Clintons involved. Obviously, Obama is involved. We haven't heard from him yet, but we will be hearing from him soon very clearly. And so, again, I think that Harris is in a very strong position, and I can't think of anyone who would be able to run against her successfully. So I'm confident, and while I'm not going to take it for granted that it just goes to Kamala Harris, the vice president, she's not taking that for granted either.
A couple last questions. I want to ask about the delegates, 273 delegates in Texas. Will it be challenging to get all them on board because they were originally signing up and pledging to President Biden, and now do you think you'll have anyone tear off?
Let's be really clear. We are third in terms of the size, the sheer number of delegates. You have New York, you've got California, then you've got Texas at 273. So the game is here. Texas is a huge part of this, what we're trying to do in terms of getting the number, the count that we need for Harris. But again, this is really a mini campaign, right, if you think about it. Who are the people that are going to be supportive of Harris? getting them on the phone, getting your campaign, your mobilization ready, having people call these delegates, calling members of Congress, calling donors. So trust and believe. Right now, as we speak, there is, a full visual map for people to see. There's a war room and everybody is at work. And again, I expect for her to prevail. I have no doubt about it. No doubt.
And so does she just take over the existing infrastructure that's set up by Biden?
And add to it,
Okay.
and add to it. I definitely feel like what we are seeing from Biden, and again, I just have to say is, having been a part of his campaign to help get him elected, and I couldn't be more proud of Biden. What he's doing is admirable. It's honorable. He is a true patriot to this country. To step aside at this time after having earned these nominees, these delegates, and earned the nomination, I can't think of anything more patriotic to this country that he's doing. So hats off to him. I'm proud of him. I'm proud that he is the President of the United States, and I thank him for what he's doing in this time.
And last thing here, I expect more endorsements for Harris in the coming hours, coming days. What are you going to be watching for?
What I am going to be watching for, really, and I would say listening for, is what Jim Clyburn says. I've gotten several emails from various groups that are now having calls to say, what do we need to do to line up behind Harris? And I'm going to tell you this. I personally have not seen in recent history African American organizations line up so quickly and mobilize so quickly. There are about 4 phone calls going on across the nation tonight in support of Harris. We are the Democratic base, and the message is clear. We will not pass Kamala Harris, and she will be the presidential nominee. And to my friends and the party insiders in the donor community, and again, they're not monolithic, but I do want to say that as the backbone of the party, African Americans definitely are looking forward to the day where we can say thank you across the Democratic Party for lining up behind Kamala Harris. And so I'm excited. I know it's going to be a success, and we're ready to get through the convention.
Can Democrats finally unite behind a candidate?
Absolutely.
Think so?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And as far as more endorsements, you're not expecting anyone else to throw their name in the nominating ring here?
Oh, I would not say that that's not going to happen.
So that could happen, but you think people will line up behind Harris?
Yeah, it could definitely happen. I don't, look, and let me just say this. This is a democratic, system, right? So, it's not the same to say, oh, there's a name out there. And it's not the same of saying, then that means it's, an anti-Harris movement. People are free to run in this country, right? That's why we love being Americans. You can do what you want inside of these various systems. And so, seeing someone people put their names in the hats, that wouldn't be a surprise to me. I really just look forward to continuing to see what I've started seeing, which is really mobilization for Harris. I'm very proud. Absolutely. Okay. Already.
Who is odds on for VP?
Yeah,
Pennsylvania?
That's been really interesting, right? We've heard Shapiro, we've heard Mark Kelly, we've heard Bashir. So, I think we have to wait and see. But
who's most strategic, though? Pennsylvania makes a lot of sense to me. Whitmer says she's not interested. Bashir would be an interesting choice, too.
I think Bashir is a really interesting choice, right? Mark Kelly, I know a lot of people really like him. He's very popular. So, that's
good resume.
Good resume. Yeah. That's yet to be seen. But I think the good news is that what I'm hearing is that that's where we're starting to focus, right? So instead of focusing on who is going to be the nominee, what we're hearing is that we're focusing on who is going to be the VP pick. And that really is where we need our party insiders and our donor community to start focusing on. Who is the VP pick?
How long until you think Harris picks a vice presidential?
Well, look, it's about respecting the process, right? And so
she's got to get one thing locked up at a time.
She's got to get one thing at a time, and she's got to signal that she is respecting the process.
Yeah. But is that within a week, you think, or what? we're on a timeline here, and the clock's ticking.
Yeah, I really believe that we're going to see that at the convention.
At the convention? It would go that long?
I think that when you just talk about strategy and the fact that there has to be respect for the process, right? That you can't take it for granted. That would be my assumption. I could be wrong about that, obviously.
Build suspense like Trump did.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense.
Absolutely. In terms of just the backbone, we've heard over the years, throughout the years, that the African Americans are the backbone of the Democratic Party. And in many ways, that's absolutely true. And so there are, if you look at your timeline, you definitely have detractors who say, maybe some unfavorable things about Harris. But when you talk about the party and when you talk about the infrastructure of the Democratic Party, people inside the party, when we talk about these delegates, right? Because we've got to remember there's the voting public, right, which you have to make a case for. And then there's insiders, which are also delegates, because they're a part of this process. And when we think about Texas, 273 people, we're talking about delegates. There is one case to make to them, and then there's another case for the public at large. And so I think that in terms of Harris, the Biden-Harris administration, she's got a very strong record. Biden has been one of the more, I would say, transformational presidents in modern history, and she gets to really pull down on those wins and point to them. And so in terms of that 273, I think she's in a very, very strong position. In terms of general public, American public, she's got to make a case, just like any other presidential candidate would have to make, right? Which is probably different from how you speak to your base, to your inside, Democratic base. But what I will say is that if I'm choosing between a criminal and an AG, or a criminal and a district attorney, or a criminal and a prosecutor, the choice is clear, right? And that's Harris. So we've got somebody who's been able to, in Harris, who's been able to say what she's going to do and point to wins and stand by her word on the truth, stand on the truth. And we've got Trump, who really has had a lot of misinformation out there, lies on top of lies. And so for me, that contrast is very easy. It gives us a very clear choice. The choice could not be clearer. So I feel very confident about Harris' ability to become president of the United States.